Hello, this is Brian Scuttle with Sonic Cinema. I wanted to do a video discussing where I personally am as far as everything going on with COVID-19, as well as Sonic Cinema, as well as movies in general. So this is sort of a 6-month check-in on where we are, and where we're at is we are currently left without a summer movie season in the way that we've known it since the 70s with Jaws and Star Wars for the first time since I've been alive in my coming up on 43 years of living. It's pretty surreal to think about that this is unlike any summer movie season that I've seen in my lifetime, that anybody's seen in our lifetimes. Tenet and Mulan are pushed back to August and will more than likely get pushed back some more if things are trending the way that they continue to be trending with COVID-19 and spikes in cases. And that means a further delay in movie theater openings. I was originally going to be back in July right in time for Mulan, but right now with those pushed back to August, not quite sure when that's going to be. Should find out tentatively in the next couple of days. But with those two big movies back in August, we are left without a summer movie season with no big blockbusters coming out. That's a bit of a surprise, and needless to say, it's something that none of us expected to see in January this year, and even I think to a certain extent March, when the movie theaters shut down. But it is what it is. So what are we left with as far as movies for the summer? Well, we're actually left with quite a bit. VOD movies are continuing to come out. I still have not seen King of Staten Island. I'm not keen on just renting a movie for $20. I know I'm not alone in that, but, I might check that one out sooner rather than later. Same with Irresistible, Jon Stewart's next comedy. I was a fan of Rosewater, his first film, so I'm curious to see what he does with his follow-ups, even though I know the reviews are not very good. Hamilton comes to Disney Plus this week. I'm looking forward to that. The Truth, which is from the director of Nobody Knows and Shoplifters, comes out on Friday on VOD. I will be posting my review of that on July 1st. I reviewed it back in March when the movie was originally going to be coming out in April, and it's basically just been sitting there waiting for the release date, and the release date is now upon us, so I will be posting that in the next couple of days. I also have a review for a movie that's coming to Shudder next week called The Beach House. That review will be posted next week, as well as some interviews I've done with some of the filmmakers. And there's also Adam McGowan's new film, Guest of Honor, which I will be watching this week in preparation for releasing that review next week when it comes out in VOD. Video on demand and drive-in theaters are the big ticket this year, and I've not been to one of the drive-ins that have come up, especially the ones that the Plaza in Atlanta, as well as Dad's Garage, have been doing this summer. I haven't done that yet. I do hope to do that for the new documentary on John Lewis, which was originally going to play at the Atlanta Film Festival before it got canceled, pushed back to September. I'm curious to see what that's going to be like, whether they'll do a virtual festival this year like other festivals are. But if it does, if it doesn't, that's still a couple months down the road, but I am looking forward to watching the documentary on John Lewis, who's an important figure in Georgia politics and politics in general, a civil rights icon, and I'm really looking forward to watching the documentary on him, Good Trouble, which the Plaza is actually going to be running at its drive-in starting on this Thursday, July 2nd. As far as the movies that we've seen so far in the first 6 months of the year, there have been many that have stood out. I've currently seen 140 movies I'm considering for my list this year, 70 of which were for the Women in Horror Film Festival, now 70 of which have been apart from that festival, whether it's screeners from studios like IFC Films, Shudder, or Neon, or whether it's screeners from filmmakers, which I've gotten to a few of those, and I'll talk more about some of those here shortly, or whether it's just mainstream movies that I've had to happen to watch over the past 6 months. I had not seen Invisible Man when I posted my summary of the first 4 months. I have now seen it, and it's really good. It's a great job of updating a classic story, which is one of the better of the Universal monster movies, in my opinion. And Elizabeth Moss does a tremendous job in that, although I do think she's better in Shirley, the Josephine Decker movie that she was in, that came to Hulu this month, as author Shirley Jackson. I think she's even better than that. And I think the movie itself is better. If you haven't seen Defy Bloods by Spike Lee on Netflix, I highly encourage it. It's a really entertaining movie. And Netflix, in addition to Defy Bloods, probably is one of my favorite movies I've seen this year. In Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga, and it's the new comedy that came out with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams on Friday. It's about the Eurovision Song Contest. It reminds me a lot of Blades of Glory, which is one of my favorite Will Ferrell comedies, and he and Rachel McAdams do a wonderful job in it. So if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend that. Some of the most interesting movies that I've seen in the past couple months, though, have been from filmmakers who are doing what they can to stay busy during this time of social distancing and quarantining, and they've delivered some really interesting films. First, there's Nathan Sewer, who made a film with his writing partner Lenny Schwartz, who they came up with a movie that was filmed essentially via Zoom, and it basically tells the stories of about 100 people in quarantine, and it's called Far From Perfect: Life Inside a Global Pandemic. It's a long movie. It's almost 2.5 hours, and it's available on YouTube, but is a big meal of a movie. And they made it back in March, and it got me thinking of where everybody was with the pandemic at that point, and seeing the way that Sewer and Schwartz dramatize that is really interesting, and the way that they connect stories, as well as do a larger social commentary on life inside a pandemic itself, is really interesting. I also watched another movie of theirs that hasn't come out yet this morning, and it's really quite good. It's called The Assassination of Western Civilization. And I don't want to give too much away from that. You can read my review at sonic-cinema.com about that one. But it's a really intriguing thriller and it's another one where I think they deal with they put us in the mindset of being observers to larger society, and it's really interesting the way they do that in that particular film. So I would check it out. Another filmmaker or group of filmmakers who've been making the most during quarantine is filmmaker Jeremiah Kipp and his producing partner Jennifer Plotsky, and they've made a few pandemic films, and I know they have a few more that I haven't had a chance to see yet, but the ones that they have done are really intriguing. There are 3 poetic recitations and a couple of narratives that they've done that are really a lot of fun. You can see those reviews on Sonic Cinema. My favorites are The Bells, which is based on the Edgar Allan Poe poem, a couple of Pablo Neruda recitations, and probably Jumper is my other favorite of theirs that they've done. That is, and that one has a feeling of sort of a theatrical piece, and the way it's done, it's almost done like a documentary, and the way that they accomplish that is really, really interesting and really compelling. So I all of those are available with the reviews on Sonic Cinema, so I highly recommend checking those out. I've gotten into a lot of reviewing TV for, especially the Topic streaming service has presented me with a lot of screening opportunities. In terms of those, I think Year of the Rabbit, which is a British comedy series that I just watched, is really entertaining, and if you subscribe to Topic, I recommend checking out, as well as the Danish thriller miniseries The Day, which looks at a robbery from two sides, the police side and the criminal side, and it's just a really interesting way of doing a thriller, and I highly recommend it. I've also had a chance to see a few 30 for 30 documentaries for ESPN, and the Bruce Lee one, Be Water, was a really compelling one to watch. And there's another one where my review is going to post later on Monday, called and that one is called Blackfeet Boxing Non-Visible. Is about a boxing club that has been made on the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, but it's also about the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, and the way that those two stories are brought together are really entertaining, is really compelling and really emotional. It had a pretty big effect on me. Chris Esper, who I've had on the podcast before, he had a documentary, sort of a memory piece that he did called Yesteryear, which I highly recommend checking out. It's on his YouTube page, and I think I also linked to it on the review. As far as feature films, honestly, the top of my list so far this year remains KXI's Black Lake, which I saw at the Women in Horror Film Festival. It still sticks with me even months afterwards. Seeing it, the soundtrack is by Burning Tapes is probably going to be my favorite soundtrack of the year. Although there are some really entertaining ones, from Bacurau to Five Bloods. Terrence Blanchard does a wonderful score. So Black Lake is still probably my choice for the best movie of the year. I don't know when you'll be able to take a look at it yourself. But when you do, I when it is available, I highly recommend checking it out. It's really it's a movie that sticks with you, and it's a movie that you may not even quite be sure how you feel about watching it, but afterwards I think you'll find that it sticks with you. Surely I've already mentioned The Painter and the Thief, which is a tremendous documentary about a painter who has some of her paintings stolen and how she forms a bond with the thief who stole them. And that is just such a tremendous piece of humane documentary filmmaking. It's something that it's on Hulu right now. I highly recommend checking it out. It's just a wonderful documentary about the need to show empathy and the importance of us showing empathy towards other people, even if we are not quite sure if they deserve it based on their actions. The Trip to Greece is one of my favorite comedies of the year. It is the finale of the series that Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon have done, trips around Europe, and it's one that really had an impact on me, and I got a chance to finally watch those, and it was great to be able to finally watch those. I really enjoyed that series. Taxi Cab Ride with Jesus by Russ Camaro, we talked about it on the podcast before, was a really beautiful short film. Ken Loach's Sorry We Missed You is just a fantastic human drama about struggling through economic uncertainty. Baccarat is just a really entertaining Western type movie, and it was one of the first films that was really made available in the virtual theaters to where donations go towards independent cinemas. And that's one that I still really enjoy. I'm looking forward to owning that one myself so I can revisit it. It's really an entertaining movie. And there's a lot more to talk about. There's still a lot of films that I haven't had a chance to see. I'm mostly caught up with the big ones that missed reviews. That missed really their theatrical window or had their theatrical window cut short because of the theaters closing. Onward, I saw one that came on Disney Plus. I enjoyed that one. The Way Back, I just watched a couple weeks ago. My wife and I finally caught up with The Hunt, and we didn't really care for it that much. But beyond that, I think that's pretty much it. You can check out a lot of my reviews at sonic-cinema.com. Keep up with the podcast. There are going to be some really good and emotional episodes coming up, as well as some entertaining ones on specific filmmakers and types of films. I hope you enjoy those. And if you're a fan of my composing efforts, I am actually going to be doing a virtual concert on Monday, July 20th over Facebook Live, where I perform or do performances of some of the most personal pieces I've done in my lifetime. And I will actually be performing live during that one. So that's one to look forward to. And there's more information on the event. It's called Pieces from the Heart Virtual Concert. If you find it on Facebook events. And I hope you join me with that. This is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for patrons at patreon.com/SonicCinema. Thank you to readers, listeners on the Sonic Cinema podcast, which is now available on Google, iTunes, and Spotify. And just anybody who follows me on www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, which you are watching this from. Thank you very much.